Right. Hello everyone and good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Audit Committee of Crawley Borough Council. I am Councillor Kieran Khan, the chair of this committee. For those in the building, there are no scheduled fire drills, so in the event of a fire alarm sounding, please leave the building via the main spiral staircase and through the main reception doors. Once outside, please turn left and make your way to the fire assembly point located beyond the multi-storey car park on Exchange Road. If you are unable to use the stairs, please wait in the council chamber and you will be guided by a member of staff to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the council's YouTube channel. Please note that there is no comments function as part of this webcasting. The council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during this webcast. This will be done in accordance to the council's published retention policy. Councillors are reminded to take note of what is displayed on the screens in the room, as this shows what is being recorded and webcast. Cameras are currently set to capture you in a seated position, so please remain seated when speaking. You can request to speak as usual by raising your hand. Speak by pressing the button with the face on it, and the microphone will go green when you are live. It is important to remember that when you are not speaking to please turn your microphone off. Committee members and officers are reminded to be mindful that given this meeting is being live streamed, any comments made and responses given must not contain exempt information. So the first item is the apologies for absence. So we have received apologies for absence from Councillor Hellier. Have we received any further apologies?
We haven't, Chair. Everyone else is present.
Okay, great. The next item is the declarations of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest councillors wish to declare for this meeting tonight? Okay, cool, great. So the next item 3, is the minutes. So now on to the approval of the minutes. Does the committee approve the minutes of the audit committee meeting held on the 9th of July 2024? Yep.
Thank you. I just have one point that I think should be included. And that is in the last paragraph where we have a discussion between myself and other members regarding access to the audit report, to the audit committee. I think a comment was made that external auditors do not have access to the audit report. I think that should be noted because I think they should have, and we should make a specific inquiry from them whether they have unrestricted access to not only audit report but also other working paper.
Are you proposing an amendment to the minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. I think I sent a line which says the committee was also informed that even the external auditor does not receive internal audit reports.
Okay, so for this amendment to be made, we need a proposer and a seconder to approve this amendment, is it? Okay, right. Okay, right. So can I bring Siraj in on this point, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think, the point's been made about the external auditor not having access to the reports. I think rather than it being a case of them not being provided or being denied access to the reports, my understanding is that either they have access or they don't require it. It's not something that they have specifically asked us for. We've not specifically said no to the external auditor. Generally, I think there's very few things that we would say no. Exactly. So it's not the case that we've denied access to the external auditor to the point that we need to minute this. I should add that the minutes are not verbatim. So otherwise we'd be listing everyone else who we haven't shared access to these reports to. Thanks.
Thank you for that response, Suraj. So if you want this amendment to go forward, we will need a proposer and a seconder for this amendment. So do you have so are you going to be proposing this amendment?
Yes, I do, because I think it's important, because we were talking about audit committee having access to the audit report, which I think they should have. And a specific comment was made by myself, and the response was external auditors do not have.
Okay, so do you have a seconder for this amendment? Okay, so that is seconded by Councillor Lunnon. So now we can take a vote.
Sorry,
Yeah.
can I?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Personally, I agree to Siraj's comments. I mean, if external auditors, they require access or they require any information on internal audit, they can request and that can be provided. I think we are sort of giving the impression that we are denying access to external auditors, which is not the case.
Just last thing. I'm okay not to have this in the meeting, but that was a matter of fact that it was said in the meeting. And my point was just that why audit committee do not have access to the audit report. Yeah. I mean, if everyone you can have a vote, that's fine. But since Siraj has said that external auditor have indeed access to the audit report, which actually mean that what was said in the last meeting, it was contrary, it was superseded, his comments is superseded. So, it's fine.
I think if we're trying to go on direct quotes, I think at the last meeting, I think the question was asked: are they given access in the context of the discussion about whether audit committee should have it? And I think we said no, because it wasn't something that they'd asked for. I think what we've established here is that if the external auditor asked for it, they would have it and they would have full access to it. They may well have access to it and they don't look at it currently for their purposes. So maybe Mez would be able to capture that if that's something we want to put a clarification in, or even put in the minutes of this meeting, that we've discussed that point, so it's covered. So we don't necessarily have to go back and correct last times, but we can have something, I'm sure, in the minutes of this meeting to reflect the accurate position. So I think that's quite important, as you say. We shouldn't be saying that external auditors don't have access, because they do, if they want it.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, yep. So what I can do is in the minutes of this meeting, under this item of approval of the minutes, I can just say that it was spoken about and noted that, and then I'll put that into this meeting.
Yes, I think that's fine. But it means now that external auditor have access to the internal audit report, but audit committee does not have. So that is the position. Okay.
That's the factual position, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
If we're happy to move on from that point, then. Okay. So, are there any other issues with the minutes that councillors and members want to raise? Okay, great. So the next item would normally be.
Can we just approve them?
Oh.
Ask everybody to just say agree that they approve the minutes.
Yeah. So can we all approve the minutes, please? All agree? Okay. All right. Thank you. The next item would normally be public question time, but we have no members of the public, so moving on. So item 5 is the internal audit progress report. So we will now move on to the internal audit progress report, which starts on page 11 of the agenda pack. So I will ask Lona Bond, the Deputy Head of Southern Internal Audit Partnership, to present her report to the committee.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. The report in front of you this evening is for this committee to note. and the report is presented in line with the requirements that we set out in the Audit Charter and in line with SIPFA best practice guidance on audit committees. The report sets out the progress to date against the 24-25 audit plan as at the end of July, and also incorporated into this progress report is any items that are hung over from the 23-24 audit plan. So any items of work through the course of last year that didn't make it into the annual report that was presented to this committee's last meeting. I'll take overall the report as being read by yourselves and just take you through some of the key points that I'd like to highlight to yourselves. Page 17 of your agenda pack is section 4 of the progress report on live audits. This is where we just give you a high-level indicator of those audits that have any outstanding management actions. There are still a few hung over from 22-23, and the remainder are all reflective of 23-24 work. You can see from that table now that there are a number of overdue management actions, and that level of management actions becoming in overdue is increasing. Just need through for you as a committee to be able to keep a watch and brief on that. I am liaising regularly with CMT as a whole and all group heads of service individually through the action tracking progress to monitor progress, particularly on these overdue actions, and getting explanations and reasons for the delays and revised timescales for implementation of those actions. As we sit here today, I'm not overly concerned with those actions that are running late, and comfortable with the revised target dates as set. If at any time I become concerned on any that are continuing to be moved on without any reasonable explanation, I'll escalate that through my liaisons with CMT to seek assurances there. And if I still feel a little bit uncomfortable with where these are running, I'll obviously always flag it up to yourselves through the progress reports so that you can see what's happening with those. As always in the progress report, for those high priority actions that are running overdue, you've got quite a detailed summary of what the observations were, what the actions were, what the revised deadline is and where the current progress is on these actions. So I'm hopeful that should satisfy yourselves as a committee, that these actions are progressing. I think for the ones that are running over, when you look at what the issues were and the level of work that's needed to be done, I think perhaps again in hindsight, the original target dates were a little bit over optimistic because in some areas there was quite a bit of work to do. But I think it's positive that the council are seeking to try and address these issues as soon as they possibly can. And as I say, any that is running over, I'm quite satisfied at this stage with the reasons for those and the revised target dates. I think the stretch targets have just been a little bit too ambitious for the council in some areas to get all of these actions implemented. In section 5 of the report, this is where we give you some detail on any audit reports that we've issued, where we have given either a limited or a no assurance audit opinion. So this time round in the progress report, there's one audit in there for yourselves, and this is an audit on housing rents. This is the one audit that has been carried forward, not so much carried forward as hung over. It missed the deadline for the annual report for 23-24. And we'll take into account that assurance opinion when we come to the 24-25 annual opinion. Looking back now and looking coldly at that grid that's in front of you, I probably recognise now it's slightly out of balance in what we're reporting, in the sense of the table itself just merely shows those observations that have arisen with the management actions that have contributed to the limited assurance opinion for that particular area, but it's not reflective of all the other positive stages and positive work that we saw through the course of that audit. I will take that forward for any subsequent limited assurance opinions that you may have, so that that grid becomes a little bit, well, not a little bit, becomes more balanced for you. So in terms of just providing a bit more context around that audit, it was an audit of the house and rent system, and areas that we definitely, that we found that were working well. All key policies, procedures, process notes were all well documented, well communicated, up to date and in place. Rent changes, any changes in levels of rent, are well communicated through the team and through to the wider payees of the council. One of the key things that we looked at in this review was the data transfer from the existing system onto the new ActiveH system. That was all done, reconciled, etc., etc. And again, the table in front of you focuses on the management reports that were either absent or just a lack of awareness through the staff of the new ActiveH system functionality for reports in and around housing arrears. But I just want to draw out that actually arrears are still being chased, arrears are still being monitored, and performance on arrears and balances of arrears are getting regularly reported through the housing portfolio briefing note, with the last one at the time of audit that we looked at being November 2023. So the table in front of you just shows those key areas within the audit where we felt were bringing that opinion down. And it brought the overall review down into limited. But as a system review, it was right on the borderline between reasonable and limited. But we always err on the side of caution, because we don't want to give any false sense of security. So we put it into limited this time round. But just to be able to satisfy yourselves as a committee, there is a lot of good work getting done in and around housing rents and housing rents collection. And then on section 7, which is on pages 19 and 20 within your pack, this is our table on the rolling work programme, which we just again give you a high level summary of, you know, which audits are due and which quarter and where, for those that are currently due to have been started at this point of the year, where they currently are. We are behind in delivery. We are not at this stage significantly behind in delivery. And I'm working closely with CMT to make sure that we get delivery back on track and stay ahead of delivery through the remainder of the year to be able to arrive timely at an annual opinion for 24-25. Reasons for delay are both on the council side as well as partly on our side. We have got some resourcing stretches at the moment, which means that we are getting delayed in starting some work, as well as over the last, well, I would say last 2 months, but probably the last 5 years, there is such a stretch on demand of council services and council staff. But if we particularly look over the last 2 months, there has been a huge issues in and around refugees, asylum seekers, so the stretch on homelessness generally, There's the ongoing financial pressures on everybody that's affecting increased demand across a range of council services, as well as the recent civil disorder crises that all councils have had to deal with. That's obviously impacted on all the workings and the functionings of the council over the short term, which has not unreasonably meant that internal audit has somewhat been slightly lower down the agenda and priorities for getting actioned. But we're hopeful now that the ship has steadied a little bit and that we can get delivery back up to where it needs to be. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your presentation, and I will now open this item for debate. Please indicate your wish to speak by raising your hand. So, are there any speakers? Councillor London.
Thank you, and thank you for your report. As always, interesting. The item I'm going to talk on is inevitably the item that was at lower than acceptable sort of standard, for want of a better phrase, the housing rent. I guess my main question is, and it might be more for the officers to answer than for you, was this audit carried out after... We obviously had an issue in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I think, where there was a significant rent arrears discovered where we'd been overcharging residents in Crawley Homes residents. I believe from the time of the report, this report happened subsequent to that discovery, and yet we're still reporting, and this isn't really aimed at you or anybody else, it's just more of a comment, we're still reporting that from an audit process, the housing rents are still not running in the way they should, and indeed reading your findings, it suggests that we could well be mischarging residents yet again, which is obviously very disappointing considering the very negative impact we had on a lot of residents the first time we discovered we'd been charging them the wrong amount. So I guess it looks like this is all post active H system, which is obviously subsequent to when we had the original issue with rents being charged incorrectly. But I just wanted to clarify that, and then I guess there's no one here from the council that can really answer as to why we're still struggling to get the rents right. But I'll leave that to Siraj as the senior council officer here to sort of point me in the right direction on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the original problem wasn't rent arrears. It was to do with I think it was before my time. It was the old system, but the rents were entered incorrectly because I think they were calculated on the wrong number of weeks. Yeah, so it was a technical error that got carried forward, and this wasn't the only council that it happened to. When it was discovered, obviously it was corrected as quickly as possible, and it led to quite a significant repayment of housing benefit. I think, I need to check with Iona, but I think these are isolated incidents that we're talking about. We're not talking about... Yeah.
Not a major.
So the limited is based on a number of issues that came out through the report. One is the in and around the lack of awareness of the management reporting functionality within the new ActiveH system, which means that some tasks are being done manually, which is affecting in some cases some of the reconciliations where they're out of sync, although they do catch up over the course of a period of time. It's also reducing the effectiveness and the timeliness of arrears chasing. Although arrears chasing is still being undertaken, it could be done easier if the automated system and the management reports are being used. And there was an issue which I think is probably what you're picking up on, and I'll just need to pick the report up, where It's where new properties or new rents are being added that the rent calculator, in a couple of those instances, the rent hadn't been calculated correctly, but it's not across the board. I'd like to reassure you of that.
So just to understand, did you actually check every single rent, every new one? Because if you found some instances of failure in your random sampling, then it is feasible that it is quite a widespread issue, isn't it?
As technically it is feasible, but we wouldn't have done 100% sampling on that. It would have been based on a sample, but it was on a specific criteria of a type of rent, which in of itself is a low number of properties.
Okay. I mean, basically, it comes back to my original point, is that we had a failure of the rents to be applied properly over a number of years before in Crawley Homes, and what we're now getting is a report saying that we don't have more than a limited opinion of assurance in the current rent processes in Crawley Homes. I'm just highlighting as a councillor, I find that disappointing that we don't seem to be able to get our rents, which is quite a key part of what a lot of residents pay to us, to be able to charge them accurately, to be able to charge them accurately enough to at least now have a more than limited assurance on the accuracy of those rents. And I'm just reading that from the report, and I'm just highlighting it as disappointing in my view. That's it. Thank you, Kim.
Okay, thank you, Councillor London. Can I bring in Imran, please?
Thank you. I think the historic issue Councillor Lennon is referring to was where, I think the rent was charged for weekly. So when it was changed to monthly, they still calculated on 4 weekly basis. So, in the past where there were 13 installments, and then it changed to 12 installments, so rent was overcharged. So that was the case in the past. So where they are on the new properties, where they are getting wrong, is it because of some error in the formula they are applying, or are there any other issues there? And also, with regard to this reconciliation where you are saying that there are differences, are those differences material? Can you put value to it, please? Thank you.
In terms of both of these questions, I think, in all fairness, I just need to go back, re-look through the report and provide a written answer to you on these, because I don't want to get anything again out of context. So I'm looking at where we've got the properties where the rent level we found was incorrect. Is it formulaic, or is it another type of error? And in terms of that, the reconciliations, are any errors material? Okay. If I produce a little written statement on that, and I'll pass it to Carolyn or straight to Mez for circulating out.
Right, thank you. So are there any other speakers on this item? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. So one of my questions was on rent area, which I think was comprehensively answered. The other one is user access audit that we are due to undertake in Q4. So I just want to check what will be the scope of this audit. It is on page 20.
So that audit at the moment hasn't been scoped because it is in Q4. And what we do at the beginning of each quarter is we meet with the relevant head of service, line manager for the area. We discuss the audit topic. We go through what the key risks are. From the council's point of view, we'll have a look at the strategic risk register. we'll bring any known instances of risk or horizon scanning to the table. And through the course of that discussion, we would come up with what the actual specific scope of the audit is. But in broad terms, because it's an IT audit and it's user access, I would say the scope will be in and around how new users are set up onto the system, what access they are given, and how that relates to their job role, their role profile. We would also take into consideration any job changes, role changes that an individual has through the course of their employment with the council, and how that may affect what system access they have and how that's all authorised and changed on the system. And also in terms of leavers from the council, how IT are notified of who is leaving, when they're leaving, so that any systems accesses can be timely deleted, cancelled from the network. So in broad terms, it is all in and around users on IT systems and their profiles.
Thank you. Yes, so my question was more about like which IT system that will be in this scope, and in particular, I'm more interested in if financial system, the accounting system will be in the scope, because I think this year, for the first time, auditor will also be doing some ITGC test, which include access and other change management controls. So, and I think their audit will be in Q4 or around the same time. So, thank you.
Okay, can I bring in Councillor Belbin, please?
Just a minor thing, just trying to understand driver safety, because it has got limited assurance there. It says on 4 occasions the driver's risk rating had not been calculated correctly. So one driver scored 15 rather than 35. What was the score that was recorded and what was the correct score? It says it's still making them low risk. So presumably the higher the score, the more risky the driver they are. But one driver scored 35 instead of 40, taking them from low to medium. So should they have been 40 instead of 35? It'd be nice to know what the range of scores are possible for to judge people on. Don't know whether you would know what the... Just want to understand it a bit better because we've got limited assurance on it.
So again, I'd need to go back to the original working papers and come back to you on this, because this is, as Siraj will come in, no doubt, this is actually a very old audit report. This is going back to 22-23 now. So it has been on this progress report for quite a while. Again, the updates from Siraj reflect that, everything is still in progress to be actioning. I think we're just about there on the outstanding bits and pieces to be done, which will tie in with end of year appraisals for ongoing checks on training. But in terms of that, I'll need to go back to the original audit and the working papers to answer that question.
I'd just like to say that I think it's very grateful for your reports covering such a wide range of potential liabilities that we have, like on the electrical safety. It's being improved thanks to us having internal audit, and also driver safety. I mean, these are quite different things, but you're covering quite a range of areas, and I think it's very good that we've got external auditors like yourself in place. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And again, I think I probably talked about it when I did the annual report to this committee. The strength of the audit and the findings that we're coming up with, I do have to reflect and give credit to to the corporate management team and the senior leaders at the council, who, when we go through the planning process, do not shy away from those areas that they do feel really do need the close look at, where they do have some slight concerns operationally, they might not be where they need to be. So there is that, and also the number of days that the council invest into the audit product allows us to be able to do those deep dives. So if we didn't have the senior management team, the corporate management team on board with audit, you wouldn't be getting the results that are coming in front of you, that are the key drivers for improvement on internal control at the council.
Okay, thank you. And if you'd want to send that information through to Mez, that would be great. Thank you. So, are there any more speakers on this item? Can I bring in Suraj, please?
Just on the driver safety point, Councillor Belbin, you were asking specific about the scores. I think to reassure you, the actions coming out of it are aimed to get consistency of how the scoring is done. So, and one of the things, I mean, this particular one's in relation to driver risk assessment. So it's a paper exercise where the manager is kind of putting in all the various factors in relation to the driver and then coming up with a score. It's kind of a matrix which produces a result. And I think it's about what we're aiming to do is provide a bit more guidance so there's more consistency of how the scoring's done. But in terms of in-vehicle assessments, for example, they need to be done by, so these are people driving the council's vehicles, the fleet out there. What we've been doing is getting the competent people trained up with specialist training so that when they undertake the tests with people, drivers in their vehicles, they're being consistent and they're looking for the right things.
My question was more sort of to understand what does 15 mean to me as opposed to 35.
Yeah.
We all know O levels used to be A to C pass.
So it was more, the numbers, working out where these 15 and 35 fitted in the scale. We all know A to C is a pass at O level, and I was just wondering how far out they were really to get appreciation. I wouldn't like you to give a risk scoring on me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Balbin. All committee members have had an opportunity to speak, and the recommendation is that the report be received and that the progress to date at the 31st of July 2024 be noted. So, do we all agree with this recommendation? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 6, the counter fraud report, so the update on counter fraud. So we will now move on to the update on counter fraud, which starts on page 33 of the agenda pack. I will ask Stuart Small, the Deputy Fraud Manager, to present his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is for the period the 1st of July 2024 to the 18th of August 2024. The recommendation is that the committee note the report. The reason for the recommendation is, as the committee is aware, the committee has a responsibility to oversee the council's anti-fraud and corruption arrangements. If I take you straight on to the current open cases this month, or for this period, sorry, we have 57 active open cases at this point. This is up slightly from the previous reported period of 53. These range from council tax support cases, housing cases, a fly tip case, and a right to buy cases that we have. For the in period on point 4.2, during this period we've recovered one property, one right to buy has been prevented, and 2 prevented allocations. So they were properties that were going to go to people who didn't need them or have made false applications. And that gives the council a notional value of savings of 184,300 for this period, 368,600 for the year to date. These are based on Crawley Borough Council's own figures from the homelessness that we estimate the cost to the council. Council tax and business rates for the same period. New council tax rates of £7,897.69 have been added. And for non-domestic rates, £1,174,750 has been added for this period. If I take you on to the significant cases that we put on two for this period. A referral was received from the benefits section stating that a benefits claimant was not living at the address, but she was claiming a council tax reduction for it. Checks were carried out on the person in question, who was also in receipt of housing benefit. It was established that the person had formed a new relationship, moved in with their partner out of area, and had been doing so since 2019 whilst claiming a discount for her council tax and housing benefit for her rent. This created no repayment of housing benefit of £34,000 and council tax reduction of £10,500. This person was on Department of Work and Pensions passported benefit, which means that they qualify for full housing benefit and council tax reduction, so they don't have to be in contact with the council regular. This is why it was so long from 2019 to date that it was found out. The second case that we have on there is a housing options case, which is a relatively short investigation that we took on. Housing option team, in relation to their job, had a feeling that something was up with the application. They came to us and asked us to do some background checks. It proved that the letter and the tenancy agreement that the claimant or the person who was trying to make an application had provided to the council were in fact false. We contacted the correct landlord who owned the property. They confirmed via email that it was a false statement. They've never had this person as a tenant. Due to this, they've been removed from our list and have not obtained a council property. Those are the two cases. There are no implications from this report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you for your presentation. I will now open this item for debate. As usual, please indicate with your hand if you wish to speak. Thank you. So do we have any speakers? Thank you, Mr. Hall. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of this significant case, the first one, so this was this dated back 2019. So why we are not able to identify this earlier?
Okay, as I said, this was a passported case from Department of Work and Pensions, which means they qualify for a benefit that gives them full housing benefit, full council tax reduction. So they don't actually have to liaise with the council very much. I think from 2019, I think by memory, we had 2, maybe 3 contacts with this person since that period of time. We rely on Department of Work and Pensions giving us universal credit updates, and they do that on a very regular basis. We get 3 or 4 a year. They tell us that they're still on their benefits, so we're relying on Department of Work and Pensions doing their checks. When this came to our attention, which I believe was February this year, we had an open investigation until this period in time. So we've had a very short investigation. We've managed to establish the address they're currently living at, which is out of the area, another address that they lived out of the area. We've been and done an unannounced home visit. We've created the overpayment, which is being paid back. So we have had it for a relatively short period of time, and we have managed to get what I believe to be a very good outcome on this one.
My question was more on from our problem. So if they are not telling us, or they're telling us for any reason, late, I think should we not proactively each area?
In an ideal world, if you went back 20, 25 years ago on housing benefit cases and council tax reduction, used to be council tax benefit case, would have had a yearly review form. They would have had to complete a review form every year to sign and say, nothing has changed, these are my circumstances. We don't do that now as a council. local authorities do not do that now. So we rely on Department of Work and Pensions to keep us updated on the housing benefit side and universal credit side, and the council tax reduction side as well, because we're basing it on Department of Work and Pensions benefits. So in an ideal world, this wouldn't happen, but it's not an ideal world and people will try to commit fraud. So this person has been in touch with us, I said 2 or 3 times, and every time they're telling us about slight changes. I think one was that a family member had moved in, one had moved out, but at that time they weren't living within the Crawley area. So they're telling us one bit, but they're not telling us the other. So for us to establish that, we need an investigation. It's very difficult to proactively find something like this when people are going to, unfortunately, not tell the truth.
Last question. So most of the cases that we have and I have seen in last 3-4 meetings are cases which was referred to us. So I was just wondering, what is our process? Like how we, referral is fine. That is one way of getting it. But how we proactively find out these cases? I mean, do we have our internal processes to identify the instances of fraud?
Yeah, I mean, we do various checks and various proactive exercises. We're in the process of giving fraud awareness training. We've given it to the homeless officers and the housing options officers. So these officers have been on a training course with us. We've explained what we want them to look at, what we want them to find. So these are why we're getting referrals from these teams. We find after we do this training, our referrals go up quite a bit from these teams. So we do that. We also do proactive stuff with, for example, we've previously done housing properties that haven't had repairs requested within a 5-year period. And the reason we do that is we then do background checks to see whether that person is in the property. So we're proactively looking, but we do rely on the staff that we've given fraud awareness training to hopefully refer cases where they believe something is incorrect, something may be up, they will come to us, and that's when we do our investigation.
Thank you. Just last point. So we have 57 open cases at this point. So in these 57 cases, do we know how many are referral cases and how many we have identified with our internal processes?
Without going into each and every case, I wouldn't be able to answer. It's something I could do if you would like that, and I can send that on to Mez and give you a breakdown that way, but I would have to go into every case and see the first note from the investigation officer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Imran, please?
Thank you very much for the report. My question is more to do with the presentation. Table 4.1, the current open cases of 57. Is it possible to have some sort of age analysis of these cases as well, for how long they've been outstanding? You know, sometime we can prepare a report like up to 30 days, 60 days, over 90 days, something like this. Will it be possible?
Again, it's possible. I think I may be able to run a report to find that. I could tell you that most will be over 30, a lot will be over 60, and some will be over 180 and 300 days, because it depends on the nature of the case. If the case is certain housing cases where we're having to go to court to get the property back, that may take up to a year, if not slightly longer, and our fraud case will stay open until the end of that case, until there's an outcome. But it is something that I may be able to include in the next report. I'd have to have a look to see how the reports run.
I think it'll be valuable information if you can add that to our report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Belbin, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just out of interest, because your team do a marvellous job, what do you think we as a council can do to advertise the fact that we have got yourselves, to actually make sure that, to prevent people doing the fraud in the first place, rather than, you know, what can we do to discourage people? Do you feel there's anything more as a council we could do to discourage people doing this type of fraud, please?
Always is the answer to discourage people. That what we do is we put our successes on social media, into the press. We put it in, I think it's been in, is it Outline, the magazine that goes to residents? I think we've done that previously. It might be something that we look to do again. The thing that we need to do is we need to get it out in the open that Crawley has a fraud team. Not all councils have fraud teams, so we need to get it out that if you are whether it's an organised criminal gang or just someone trying their luck, that if they come to Crawley Council and they put in a false or fraudulent claim, there's a very good chance it will be found and stopped.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Lunnon?
Yeah, just on that point, do we or do other councils offer in any way incentives for residents to report known fraudulent cases?
We don't, and I don't believe any other local authorities do, but it is something I would have to check with colleagues at other councils. I know 15, 20 years ago, I believe there was maybe 1 or 2 London boroughs that did, but I don't think they do anymore. Again, it's something I'd have to check.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lunnon. Any other speakers? Councillor Russell?
It was just very quickly, as in part in relation to what Councillor Belbin and Councillor Lunn said. I mean, just a greater, broader knowledge amongst our residents of the work of the fraud team would be brilliant, because I think that's where we may pick up more business with people making those, I'd say, referrals. So I think it'd be good to put it out there. There's a couple of other very quick questions and points. You've got down, and it's only one case, but we do seem to be having a growing problem with fly tipping in the borough. I was wondering because it says here non-fraud cases not included, so what might be a fraudulent fly tip? And just very quickly, I wanted to note 4.2, because I think at the end of the day, to recognise the work that you're doing, the notionals, okay, the savings are notional, but they are savings in effect. I think that's fantastic. And just one thing for all councillors, I did actually look at a meeting I was at last night and help each other to make sure that the green light is on when we're talking, because if it isn't, you just don't hear it. So that was just a point of order. But anyway, thank you.
If I just answer, the fly tip case is where we assist normally the community wardens. They find certain information, and my understanding is that there's not an enforcement officer as such who will take these cases. They will do it if they find the information. Sometimes the information isn't always there. On the fly tip cases, it's not really a fraud case, if you like, because it should be a fly tip offence, but we've been out to look at these fly tips. I've actually been in one of the fly tips with rubber gloves on, and that's where we got the address from for the one that we've prosecuted previously. We've had addresses that we've gone in, we found who it is, and then we've done it that way. So it's not a fraud case, it's just one that we include because as a fraud investigation team, we assist a lot of teams around the council. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak. The recommendation is that the report be noted. Do we all agree with this recommendation? Okay, I'm seeing no objections. Fantastic. So we are moving on to item 7, which I believe is the last report to be discussed this evening. So we will now move on to the risk management update, which starts on page 37 of your agenda packs. I will ask Siraj Chowdhury, Head of Governance, People and Performance, to present this report. One of the recommendations on the report is to determine wherever these are any matters in relation to the register which the committee would like to be drawn to the attention of the Chief Executive or the Cabinet. With this in mind, if you would like a specific comment to be brought to their attention, please make this clear during the debate, and Mez will make a note for when we come to the vote. So I would now open the discussion up to the committee. Please indicate if you would like to ask a question. Thank you. No one wants to speak on the risk management? Okay. Oh, sorry.
I think it's answering, but what I just wanted to check, I thank the CMT for their updates on the challenges we gave them last time, so thank you for that. And I just wanted to double check, but it looks like none of the risks have changed since the last meeting. Is that accurate? Yeah, okay. Good stuff.
Thank you. So, if no one wants to stop yet,
Just one very quick question. So it's on point 3, reasons for the recommendation. So where we say, it's line 3, and provide independent assurance that our risk management framework is sound. So is the corporate management team providing independent assurance to us, or we provide it to someone?
I think it's the latter. So the corporate management team are presenting how they manage risk, and you are looking at it, considering it, and confirming that you're satisfied that those arrangements are satisfactory. So yes, in that context, you're the independent. The audit committee is the independent assurance.
So we provide assurance to whom?
To residents and constituents of this borough.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
okay, thank you. So, are there any other speakers on this report? Okay, Suraj, I forgot to ask you to present the report. Is there anything you would like to say? Sorry.
No problem, Chair. I think members would have read it, and as Councillor Allen has said, there's not been many changes. Corporate management team did consider the items that you wanted us to review the scores on. This is a live document, and we regularly review this. But yeah, as has been said, the explanations for them staying the same are provided in the report. And yeah, it's just really for audit committee to consider this and check that they're happy with what we're doing, and to take forward any recommendations back. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Belbin?
Sorry, I'm just wondering whether we could have the previous grid that was reported to us underneath the top grid so that we could appreciate the changes that you've made in your risk assessment. Would that be, how do others feel? Would that be a hard thing to do so that we could see how you change things?
I think where there are changes, they're set out in the report. So if there has been a change to either a score or a definition, it will say this has been changed. But I mean, if you wanted to look at the previous one, I suppose we could put the previous one. If you wanted to compare, it just could get confusing because there's a lot of, it'd be 2 grids then.
It's just my accountant's brain
Audit trail. Yes.
looking at columns of, and it's a way I chug things better than in the text. But yeah, it was just an idea.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other speakers on this report, then I move recommendation 1, that the committee confirms its satisfaction with the risk management arrangements. And may I ask the Vice Chair, Councillor Belbin, to second, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Belbin. So, may I have a show of hands for that motion, please? Okay, thank you very much. And all those against? Any abstentions? The motion then has been carried. Thank you.
Just to say there were no comments were made, so recommendation.
Yeah, so there are no comments that were made in this debate, so recommendation 2 does not need to be discussed. Is that right? Yep, okay. So recommendation 2 does not need to be discussed. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the meeting because there is no supplementary agenda. So therefore, with the business of the committee concluded, the meeting is now closed at 8 o'clock. Thank you.
People just bear with me. I'm just going to turn off the live feed.
if it's still on, Mez, can I just remind members of the risk management training, which I believe is 19th of September? We'll circulate a reminder, and that'd be very useful. Zurich, our insurer, are coming in to do that, or it'll be a remote training, I believe. Thanks.